already shrunk in the wash. I need something that fits me.
Uh-oh. Yo.
What's
Oh,
going
man.
on?
Fellas,
I
what's
missed you.
good, man?
I missed you.
Yeah.
Like it's been a couple weeks, man, and I don't know how to feel.
Listen, I don't know how to feel either, but I missed you. How was your travels and gallivanting through Europe?
Bro, my travels and gallivanting through Europe were actually amazing. But I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a second. But it's nothing like it. G, you have to when the application comes out, you gotta be a Fulbrighter, bro. You gotta apply to this Fulbright scholarship program.
Well, I'm glad that I know about it now, and it's not being gate kept from me.
I don't think that's what happened, but I'll take that feedback.
I thought all you Ivy Leaguers knew about the Fulbright. I thought all the Ivy Leaguers. It was like.
I'll take.
I heard of Fulbright. I didn't know that you could keep doing it after you finish school.
I'll take that feedback. I receive it. So this is like the first time we're talking to each other like post election, and so what are you guys' thoughts? Like, were you? I know you were surprised, but like, what are y'all's thoughts?
Man, I was like, I support a lot of teams that lose. I was a Jets fan for a long time, a Knicks fan for a long time. Then like the second half of my life, like the Yankees haven't done anything, the Mets struggle. So like I'm used to supporting teams that don't make it all the way. But it was a resounding loss, and it was like embarrassing, and it hurt my feelings that we were so handily defeated across the board in all the swing states and everything. And I think that was the part that was most shocking to me. Like I thought it was going to be a tight race and there's going to be all these lawsuits and recounts and all this stuff, but it was like, nah, like you got washed and you have to step aside. And that makes you feel crazy. It makes you feel like you're screaming into a void and nobody can hear you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective right there. So Steve, what were your thoughts? How did you see it?
First off, G, keep my team's name out your mouth. When we talking about the Mets?
I adopted the Mets. I adopted them. I live in Queens, and I thought maybe I would help.
Keep them out. Now, I gotta be honest with you, I wasn't surprised. And as a matter of fact, I wasn't even surprised by the amount of the loss. I felt like the weeks leading up to the election, I encountered more and more people who were sort of very vocal about their decision to vote for Trump. Folks who were other Black and brown men who were just putting it out there and saying the thing. And so I sort of increasingly had the feeling that this was not going to be close. So just because I wasn't surprised by it doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't infect me. Like I'm not feeling the loss, but I wasn't surprised by it. And, more had, the day before I had resigned myself that I was going to be disappointed. Maybe it's because I'm a Met fan and I'm used to disappointment. But like I resigned myself to that disappointment when people who I knew, loved, trusted, who had voted, for Biden in 2020, now told me they were voting for Trump. And I was like, oh, something's going on here. And folks aren't picking up on it.
Yeah. But yo, I'm gonna keep it a band. So I'm gonna say this a couple different ways, right? So like one, those of us that were rooting for Kamala based off of principle, right? Mm-hmm. And us wanting to see or hoping that there would be a better, just better reception of a woman being president, because like we gotta make sure that we name the fact that misogyny was at play in terms of how all this went down. So misogyny is the color of her skin, it's all these things, but it's also the deceptory practices that happen with voters, because a person can tell you face to face one thing, but then go in that voting booth and do something totally different. So here it is. You have the mirage of people that are like, oh yeah, we're raising money for Kamala, white people for Kamala, this person for Kamala, this person for this person, for Kamala, and then going in the booth and clearly it was something that was totally different, right?
Yeah.
And it's one of those instances to where like, all right, you about to FAFO, F around and find out, right? So like you sat on the sidelines and you wanted this person, and now you about to see, because realistically, everybody on this podcast, a Trump presidency is not going to hurt financially. As a matter of fact, you may benefit greatly from a Trump presidency financially, but morally, you're going to be convicted because of how we're built, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's right. And I think, I have the additional privilege reality of being, a light-skinned Latino who's often quote unquote can pass in spaces. And so, I hear things. People say things in front of me.
I never thought to call this out. But now that we're here now, you could pass. You're definitely a plesiest, bro.
Yeah.
All right. Continue.
My point is that people say things in front of me. And so like I recognize that to your point, like for the most part, as a human, as a person in this space, like there are things that I personally don't have to worry about. Right. But as a moral person, as a person who's chose to do the work that I do, as a person who's chose to believe the things that I believe, as a person who is convicted in what I aspire the United States to be, that's where the difficulty comes in, right? And that's where the people are going to find out, and they're gonna, I hope I'm wrong. I hope that no one finds out. I hope that what we feared would happen doesn't happen, and I never wanted to have egg on my face more than right now. But as we look at the picks that he's making for key positions, that it doesn't feel like it's heading in that direction. And so I think it's one of those things where as a human, I'm like, this feels like it's not going in a direction that my values want to go in.
Yeah. And it's
I'm light skinned. Stop playing.
I think it's also, especially with the picks, like I think maybe I'd forgotten how quickly after a presidential election that news starts to trickle in. I thought that we had a couple of months before, or maybe at least a couple of weeks before, like all of the nominees came through, and you could start to envision what the future is gonna look like. But for them to come so fast and furious and be so aggressive, and also just like kind of like the worst case scenario in some cases, especially with the attorney general. Like I'm just like, I don't think I was ready for that to be like the follow-on news cycle of this, like, devastating outcome of the election. I thought I had a little time.
Yeah, and for those folks that are listening that are trying to understand, so President-elect Trump has nominated Matt Gaetz, former congressman from Florida, to be his attorney general. And so Matt Gaetz is coming freshly off of a House Ethics Committee investigation in which is being alleged that he's had some dealings with underage girls in Florida. And so now, in the midst of that report being released, Matt Gaetz decided to resign from the House of Representatives so that report wouldn't be released. But there are a certain sector of Senate Republican senators that are requesting this investigation prior to making a decision. So there's still hope left that he won't become the attorney general, but also Trump is trying to run it through during a mid-session or whatever. So those are all things that the American people need to be on the lookout for. and you double down, and you about to find out.
But it gets better at. Can we
Yeah.
just run down? Can we just run down a few of these?
Yes.
Right? So we've got what you just described, right?
Yeah.
For Attorney General, right? Someone who is under an ethics violation investigation for potential dealings, alleged dealings with underage young women. We've got a choice for health, Department of Health, a gentleman who himself has described that he is currently has a worm eating his brain, and so that sounds great. We've got someone for defense who doesn't believe in germs because he can't see them, and then he chose two people to run a government department on efficiency because nothing says efficiency quite like two people leading one organization. So it feels to me a little bit like the 80s. They had that claymation Christmas show where the Santa, before he became Santa, finds the land of the misfit toys, and it's like instead of a jack in a box, it's a bob in a box. Like, it just feels like the land of the misfit toys. Like, none of this feels serious. I feel like I'm being punked. I keep turning around and waiting for Austin Cushion to jump on and be like, we got you. Because none of this makes any sense. None of this makes any sense.
Yeah. But it's exactly what the playbook was. And as much as he tried to have his distance from Project 2025,
yes, sir.
Like, this is exactly what.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So, bro, this is egging everybody's face, because here's what happens. This is what generally happens with Trump. He says something, people accuse him of something. He says, no, that has nothing to do with me. And then weeks later, he's now associated with the thing that he said had nothing to do with him. And so this guy's a habitual liar. And the fact that he resonates so well with like poor, undereducated people is amazing to me, because like he's never gonna be in the same room with you, guy. He's never gonna be like he's never gonna do any like so. A couple of things. So, because I don't want to really like rehash this or whatever or relitigate it, because it is what it is and it was resounding, right? But for someone to say, I'm not going to vote for somebody because they didn't go on Joe Rogan's podcast, man, fuck Joe Rogan. Like, that's crazy to me that someone would make a decision to not vote for someone based off of them not going or having availability to go to somebody's podcast. If anything, they should be on the Live. She should have been on the Live Media podcast, and we should.
Say that.
I don't believe that, though. I don't believe anyone didn't vote or voted for anyone because of the podcast they were on.
Bro,
I think people say that, but I don't believe that's real. I think people made their decision and now are searching for reasons to justify why they made their decision, and they're pulling things out of the sky. Like I don't believe that is what drove people to make a decision. I also don't believe in the undecided voter, right? Like those things. They're like unicorns.
You've been saying that though. To your credit, you've been saying that about the undecided voter. You're like, yo, these people know who they're gonna vote for. It's like,
they don't want to tell us.
Yeah, like you. But I. So the polls were absolutely wrong again, right? So it's like we need to move away from. It needs to be a post life on us and our reliability on these polls, because these polls are not accurate. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Because the polls had like 50-50, and this was not a 50-50.
Well, I mean, I think too many of the polls were like who you likely to vote for. Turnout was low, right?
Yeah.
I think
Turnout was very low.
Turnout was low, and so you can't predict if someone's actually going to go to the polls to the polls or not when you're doing those polls. I also think there's an incentive for people to lie. I think there's an incentive for people to say I don't know yet, because on either side, because they don't want to deal with someone trying to change their mind or the reality of that. So I think people are lying to polls more than they ever had before. And I think, when you have depressed turnout, it's hard to, I mean, I know I'm the data guy, and so the data guy defending the polls, but like, it's hard to have an accurate poll when people are blatantly lying and saying they're going to vote and then they don't show up. Like, what do you do about that? Right? You can't correct for that.
So you're right. You're absolutely right. You cannot correct for that. But then also you got to look at these numbers. Like, it's been years, I would even venture to say decades, since a Republican candidate has won the popular vote. And
Yeah.
so if you look at the turnout from 2016, from 2020, where his run against Biden, everybody that voted for him then came back out to vote for him again, or if not more. Like, you may have had some people that may have fell to the wayside or whatever, but he was able to pick up whatever he was able to pick up from RFK Jr. or whoever that came out for him. But he had similar numbers.
Yeah.
When you look at the Democratic side and you look at how many votes she fell short on, then you look at the amount of people that turned out for Biden, and you even look at the amount of people that turned out for Hillary Clinton. It's like this current administration, as well as her, it's reflection time. It's time to now say the messaging that we have that we have purported in order to bring people out is no longer working. Now we have to start from ground zero in order to now bring people back to the Democratic Party. And what that will mean is that people like Chuck Schumer, you got to go, Chuck. People like Nancy Pelosi, Nancy, you got to go, right? Because Jim Clyburn, you got to. The old guard has to go because it has to be more of a progressive message. Because like even with AOC, like AOC rocked the vote, bro. She was able to like bring people out in like massive numbers in New York, right? And so now we got to start looking at what's next for AOC and what's next for these people that were able to like bring people out and win. Because I don't want to be associated. I'm a Republican, but I'm not going to take this as a win for me.
I was about to say, you kept saying we, and I was like, is somebody changing parties over there?
No. Because bro, it's about to be sky's the limit for us because he can't run no more. So
I'm not gonna comment on that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, because people are like, oh well, he has a trifecta. He has the House, the Senate, and he has the presidency. But you're forgetting one thing. He got the Supreme Court too.
Yeah. Well, the one thing about like building a broader progressive movement that I think is challenging, and I notice this a lot in like how people talk about, Trump voters, especially like progressives. Like I think there's a lot of talking down to that population of folks who millions and millions and millions of people who decided to vote for and support, president-elect. And it comes from a perspective of like thinking that you're better than those people and don't want to be associated with anybody who thinks that their current situation, whether it's economic or social or whatever, could be improved by the vision of this other person. I obviously disagree with the direction and wouldn't want to support that person. But like when you hear how kind of distance that many progressives want to make between them and their views and people that might support Trump, you're leaving a lot of people out who just don't want to be talked down to, and kind of like I feel like would want to vote for someone like Trump, kind of out of spite for all the people who are saying that they're dumb for doing it. And I think that's an important thing for progressives to like really think about, like as they try to build a bigger tent of folks that will be committed to supporting their causes, because people just don't want to get called dumb, even if the things that they're supporting are dumb.
But I think too, like we've got to. The other thing we have to realize is like also, I think, and I'm not a registered Democrat. What I think people have to recognize about this election too is that like the part of the polls that were right was the connection between how people perceive the economy and what happened in the election. Because no sitting party has ever won and kept the presidency when 30% of the population feels that the economy is good. Right, and that's what we're talking about right now. You can put any numbers that inflation is down, that salaries are up, all the data in front of people. But when they go to the supermarket and when they're looking at their bills at the end of each month, they're going, "Crap, I don't have disposable income. Things are still super expensive for me to buy." Right, and it is not because of inflation. It's actually now because of corporate greed. But like when you have that few people feel like the economy is doing well, no standing party has ever done one in that election. And so in some ways, this election has gone the way the Bush Clinton election went, right? Like this is the way elections go when people don't feel good about the economy. And when I talked to people I was surprised that they were voting for Trump. They were voting for Trump. To a person, it was economy. It wasn't. And then they were like, oh, and I feel talked down to. And then when not only did AOC win, but like Trump won her district and she won her seat, which is wild to me. So people went in there and voted for AOC and voted for Trump. And so she had a town hall and she was like, can people explain to me what happened here in the way that AOC does? And one of the big themes that came out is that people felt that both of them were anti-establishment in different ways, but like the current system isn't working for me. And so I'm going to vote for people who want to push that current system. And so like, I want to be careful about overcorrecting in this because the economy was a big reason why Trump lost in 20 and a big reason why Trump won in 24.
Yeah, but you gotta explain this to me, right? If he lost it in 20 because of the economy, what makes people think that he can come back and fix something that he wasn't really good at?
I don't know that it was a vote for Trump as a vote against Biden.
Okay, fair enough.
Right? Yeah. Like personally, I think it's a vote against the Democratic Party who's in power in the government, and therefore I'm going to vote against them, as opposed to I think Trump is better on the economy. Right? Mm-hmm. I don't know that people are thinking that way. That's just my opinion.
So here's my I got to speak this into existence, man. I just hope that the folks that are in the Senate that are going to properly vet these appointees and not just rubber stamp anyone, because it only takes 50 votes in order for someone to get approval. And so they have 53 votes, man. That's a lot to play with. That's a lot of room right there to play with in terms of getting an approval. So I just hope that the Republicans that took the oath to the country and not to the party do their due diligence in terms of making sure that these candidates are properly vetted.
Yeah. I don't know. Two silver linings. Two silver linings. One is this may actually cause the Senate to get rid of the filibuster, which is something we've been needing to get rid of for a long time. And so if the Republicans really want to push through their agenda, they will vote to end the filibuster in the Senate, and therefore there will be no filibuster in the Senate. And I think that's actually progress, generally, from a governing perspective. And the second silver lining is there are a lot more people now because of Elon Musk who are going to want to buy electric cars and help save our environment, even if they don't believe that the environmental crisis is man-made. There's a lot more people now loving Tesla and loving electric cars because of Elon Musk. And hopefully that has a net impact on our conversion as a country to electric vehicles.
Bro, that is not a silver lining. That is not a silver lining at all, bro.
Okay.
I'm taking this.
Take it.
So to the former owner of Twitter, I blame this all on you. You sold this amazing platform that was meant for us, that was meant for the people, to this African American. And so I just don't understand why you would do such a thing, knowing who this person was. You know who this person is, and you gave him that much more power over us. Twitter was 100% used to stir the election and swing it to Trump. TikTok did the same thing. The algorithms in both were definitely skewed towards the Republicans. TikTok did it because they knew that Biden was going to take them out of America January 1st. I'm with all but assured that TikTok won't be impacted once Trump gets into office. And so I'm cleansing myself from social media, bro, because I don't think any of it means well for the people.
I've been trying to tell y'all. That's why I've been doing these push-ups.
Yeah, and he got a sweatshirt on, so he can't show us his progress. Because if he was making decent progress, he wouldn't have a sweatshirt on. He had that Kif Nick shirt on, and he's like, yo.
Oh man.
Yeah. So all right, test scores were released.
Steve, I think you're on mute, bro.
I was about to say, that's the first time I've ever heard Ray say African American with that tone to his voice.
Bro, I should have said South African American, but you know what I'm talking about. That's crazy, bro. And I'm black. That's it. I'm black. Nothing else. I'm black. I'm good. So G, test scores were released, man.
Yes.
I saw your data.
Yeah,
I saw your data because it was embargo. You couldn't really share with people, and you're a rule follower, so I appreciate that.
thanks for putting that on the record. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. Our data was neck and neck, so we are pretty much the highest performing single site charter schools in New York State. So shout out to Forte Prep, shout out to Riverhead Charter School.
Let's go.
We're doing business. But I put something on LinkedIn on how people can find data, because I think people don't know that this data is like readily available to them in terms of looking up any school and going to their report card to see how they did test score wise. What were some of the surprises for you? Because I know you be peeking at other people's stuff.
Stay in the pot. Look at
one of the things that is standing out to me, and it's been the case for a couple of years, and now we're seeing it much more stark contrast now that we have a high school with a lot of new ninth graders who didn't go from our middle school, is that eighth grade math is still a big problem. And it looks like the results at the state level, district level kind of are like working their way up, and then they just fall off a cliff once you get to eighth grade. And this is not even like the regions, this is just like eighth grade math. And it's anywhere, depending on what school you're looking at or what district you're looking at, it's anywhere between 20 and 40% proficiency, leaving eighth grade like preparing to go off to ninth. And so I'm surprised that leap or that drop off still exists in the way that it does. I think it says a lot more about the 5th, 6th, 7th preparation and the standards alignment than it does about eighth grade performance in particular. But that is not an issue that our school has, but it is an issue we have to contend with once we have ninth graders who have been going to schools that were really struggling to prepare them for high school math. And so that is something that still exists in really large numbers across the city.
Yeah. So I guess from the things that I've seen, to quote, rest in peace, Rich Homie Quan, these homies ain't who they say they is, bro. Yo,
I can't.
Hey, who they say they is, bro. Yeah, so you got people out here doing world tours, beating their chest, Mr. Charter this, Mr. Charter that, and then you go and you look at these results, and you're like, damn, bro, like really? You getting paid this much to talk to who about what? Like what?
This is my disclaimer. I got the disclaimer up.
So honestly, bro, I get great joy out of this, but I put it on the record right now. I'm applying for a new charter, and I don't want to hear nothing from nobody. If we basing this off of results, and we're not basing this off of politics or whatever, like, yo, give me what I need. That's it. I don't want to hear nothing. Just green light whatever I put out, because you've been green lighting so much other shit that should have never got approved. Green light whatever. That's how I feel today, man. Hey, I got another thing, man. Well, I have another thing. So, folks, as you're looking at this data from New York State test scores or whatever, notice the amount of students that are taking the test. So if you're in New York City and you're looking and you're analyzing somebody's data and you see a lot of opt-outs or whatever, think about that. this is New York City and it's black kids. Black people don't opt out of testing. And so if they are opting out, they're opting out because someone is telling them to opt out. Now you got to ask why. Why are we opting out? So if you see opt-outs on Long Island, then that's normal, given it being the epicenter of the opt-out movement. But even in some of these well-to-do districts that are putting up numbers that are comparable to mines and Grams, when I go to your subgroups and I see the amount of black and brown kids that are opting out of these tests, I'm pretty sure they're opting out because you're telling their parents to do it. Just putting it out there. Had to be said.
The knowledge.
Yeah. That's a mic drop.
Final thoughts, Steve. We'll start with you, sir.
My final thought is I'm really concerned about what's going to happen with the Department of Ed, and more importantly, the programs that the Department of Ed currently manages. I'm really worried about Pell. I'm really worried about federal work study. I'm really worried about Gear Up and Trio programs across this country. And so that is something that I'll be watching really, really closely in the coming weeks.
G.
Looking for a new social media platform. I guess if I'm
Blue Sky.
I heard about Blue Sky. I don't know anything about it yet, though. So if that's a good place to do, then maybe I'll be over there.
Now that he's swole, he needs a new social media platform.
That was a good commercial for Blue Sky right there. So here's my final take. In 1979, the United States was ranked #1 in the world in education. You know what didn't exist in 1979? The Department of Education. The Department of Education.
Here we go.
The Department of Education did not exist in 1979, thus prompting me to ask some questions with regards to what is the real reason why we have the department? But no, I'm joking aside. Big labor, you're on the clock. Teachers unions, you're on the clock, because you now know that the candidate that you bankrolled is not the winner of the presidential election. And so you know that there's going to be some anti-union things that are going to happen. And so you better start your organizing now, because he's coming for you. He's coming for all of us. So get ready. FAFO should have been the name of this episode, because we done messed around and we about to find out. All right. Peace out. Next week. We out.